Congratulations, you've done what 99% of people will never do. You followed the rules, you fought the biological urge to spend, and you've secured that $20,000 milestone we discussed in our previous deep dives. You've repaired your brain's bandwidth, your stress hormones have begun to recede, and for the first time in years, you can actually hear yourself think. You are no longer a prey animal jumping at every notification. You have achieved a level of stability that makes you feel safe. But I have to be honest with you. This is the most dangerous moment of your entire journey. Right now, you are standing on a psychological plateau, a sweet trap. It's a space where you have enough money to feel comfortable, but not enough to be truly free. If you simply let that $20,000 sit in a standard bank account, the invisible forces of inflation and the relentless evolution of the digital economy will slowly melt your foundation like an ice cube in the sun. Most people treat this money as a shield, a defensive wall to keep the world away. But the elite treat this money as a launchpad. They understand a fundamental truth that the modern school system and corporate departments hide from you. You cannot save your way to freedom. You must own your way there. Today, we are going to perform what I call the ownership flip. This is the final transition, moving from the side of the ledger where you pay for access to the side where you provide value through systems. We aren't going to talk about high-risk gambling or complex financial jargon that only a Wall Street analyst could love. We are going to talk about how a regular person, starting with that $20,000 buffer, can build a digital toll booth, a system that generates value while they sleep. By the end of this video, you will have a practical roadmap to turn the tools you currently pay for into employees that build your wealth. We are shifting from being the fuel of the machine to being the architect of the system. To understand the flip, you have to look at the world as a giant two-sided ledger. On one side, you have the payers. These are the people who trade their biological time for a wage and then immediately trade that wage for access. They pay for the right to use software, the right to use tools, the right to live in a house, and the right to be entertained. They are the kinetic energy that keeps the global economy moving, but they keep none of the value for themselves. They are subscribers to life. On the other side, you have the receivers. These are the people who own the systems, the protocols, and the assets. They don't trade time for money. They trade systems for scalability. When a receiver goes to sleep, their assets continue to solve problems for other people. The flip is not about how much money you have in the bank. It's about which side of that ledger your life is built upon. Most people are trapped on the payer side because they are in survival mode. They can't think about owning a system because they are too busy trying to fund their current one. But you have $20,000. You have bought yourself the most valuable asset in existence, strategic silence. You have the 3 to 6 months of breathing room required to look at the tools around you and ask, how do I move from being a user to being a provider? The greatest mistake people make when they try to build wealth is thinking they need to invent a global revolution. They think they need a massive office and 100 employees. This is a trap that leads to paralysis. To flip the ledger, you must start with the micro flip. A microflip is the simple act of taking a tool you currently pay for and making it pay for itself plus $1. Think about the subscriptions on your bank statement right now. Perhaps you pay $30 a month for a high-end design platform, a specialized AI research tool, or a project management suite. As a consumer, that $30 is a leak. But as an architect, that tool is your factory. The flip happens when you use that tool to create a systematized asset that others need. For example, if you use that AI tool to build a specialized set of automation templates for a specific niche, say independent bookstores or local landscaping companies, and you sell access to those templates for $50, you have performed a micro flip. You have used a rented tool to create a permanent income stream. The moment that first dollar of systemic profit hits your account, the psychological barrier is broken. The tech giant providing the tool is no longer your master. They are your vendor. You are now using their multi-billion dollar infrastructure to power your own micro business for a fraction of the cost. You have effectively hired the tech lords to work for you. Why do I call these assets digital toll booths? Because in the modern economy, wealth is no longer about owning the bridge. It's about owning the point where value is exchanged. You don't need to build the entire internet. You just need to own a small gate that people are happy to pay a small fee to pass through. Imagine you spend part of your $20,000 buffer to master a very specific high friction task like automating customer feedback loops or organizing messy business data using simple AI workflows. You build a plug and play system that any small business can use. You don't sell your hours to set it up. You sell the access to the system you've already built. This is where your $20,000 becomes a force multiplier. It allows you to pay for the initial development, the specialized software, or even a freelancer to help you build the booth while you maintain your clear-headedness. Once that booth is at the end of the bridge, it doesn't matter if you are at the gym, at dinner, or asleep. The system is processing the toll because it is solving a recurring problem. The person with no savings is still running across the bridge carrying boxes for a wage. You are sitting on the other side, owning the gate. The hardest part of this transition isn't technical, it's biological. We have been conditioned for generations to believe that if we aren't doing, we aren't earning. Our brains are wired to associate exhaustion with productivity. This is why many people who save $20,000 end up losing it. They get bored or guilty, so they start a high-friction hustle that drains their time and energy, eventually leading them back to the treadmill. You must break the association between sweat and value. Value is a result of systemic leverage. The market does not pay you for your effort. It pays you for the friction you remove. If a system you built in 10 hours saves 1,000 people 1 hour each, you have created 1,000 hours of value. The fact that it only took you 10 hours is your efficiency premium. When you start earning your first systemic dollars, your brain will scream at you that it's too easy. It will feel like you are cheating. You must recognize this as a legacy program from your scarcity brain. Your job is no longer to be the hardest worker in the room. Your job is to be the best system optimizer. You are moving from a linear life where 1 hour equals a fixed amount of money to a non-linear life where one system equals infinite potential. To make this practical, we are going to divide your launchpad into 3 strategic baskets. These aren't just investments in the traditional sense. They are the pillars of your asset fortress. Basket 1, digital nodes. These are bits. This is your offensive front. A node is any point on the internet where you own the traffic or the utility. It could be an automated information channel, a niche software tool, or a proprietary database. The goal here is high yield and low maintenance. You use a small portion of your $20,000 to buy the infrastructure or the initial content that begins the flow. This basket is designed to cover your leaks, your own subscriptions, and small monthly costs. Basket 2, systemic skills. This is your most resilient asset because it is stored in your biology. You must use your weight capital to master the skills that allow you to build basket 1. I am talking about workflow architecture, conversion psychology, and automation logic. These are the tools that allow you to see the world as a series of fixable frictions. Unlike a job skill, a systemic skill is something you use to build for yourself, not for someone else. This is the only asset that cannot be taxed, licensed, or remotely deleted. Basket 3, hard reserves. These are atoms. As your digital assets begin to produce profit, you move that wealth into physical reality. This isn't about buying a luxury car. It's about owning the physical tools of your trade, high-end local hardware, physical copies of information, and eventually the land you stand on. This basket is your kill switch protection. It ensures that no matter what happens to the digital world, you own the physical resources required to stay sovereign. The ultimate goal of the ownership flip is biological decoupling. You only have 24 hours in a day. No matter how high your hourly rate is, you will always hit a ceiling. But a system has no clock. A system doesn't need to sleep. Let's look at the math. If you spend 100 hours of your life to build a digital asset that earns you just $10 a day, most people would say that's a bad deal. They see $10 and think it's not worth the effort, but the architect sees something different. That $10 a day is $3,650 a year. If you are 30 years old, that one asset will generate over $100,000 in your lifetime for a one-time investment of 100 hours. More importantly, that $10 a day represents time freedom. If your daily survival cost is $100, that one asset has bought you 10% of your life back. You are now 10% immortal. When you build 10 of these booths, you have performed the flip. You are no longer trading your limited biological time for survival. Your systems are handling the survival, leaving your brain free to play for the big wins. This is the point where you stop being a passenger and start being the owner of the fleet. We must talk about what I call the incompetence premium. Modern society is designed to reward laziness with convenience, but that convenience comes with a heavy price. Most people trade their future sovereignty for current comfort. They pay extra for managed services where they don't have to look under the hood. Every time you choose the easy button, you are paying a premium to the person who built that button. You become broke when you outsource every bit of your agency to a corporation. If you don't know how your data is hosted, how your money is processed, or how your tools are built, you are a consumer hostage. To flip the ledger, you must embrace productive friction. You must be willing to learn the inconvenient way of doing things. Learn how to host your own data servers. Learn how to manage your own automation scripts. This friction is what builds the mental armor required to stay on the winning side of the ledger. The people who receive the payments are the ones who are willing to figure out what the people who send the payments were too lazy to learn. In 2026, competence is the only thing the AI cannot automate away from you. Once you have your $20,000 and your first few digital toll booths, a strange thing happens to your social and professional life. The world starts working for you. I call this market magnetism. When you are desperate for money, the market can feel it. It treats you like a commodity. But when you project outcome independence, when you walk into a room knowing that your automated systems have already paid for your survival, the power dynamic shifts. People can sense that you don't need the deal. And because you don't need it, you become the most attractive person to do a deal with. You start getting offered equity instead of wages. You get invited to partnerships where you provide the system and others provide the labor. By owning your own foundation, you become a high value node. You are no longer knocking on doors. You are the one deciding which doors to open. You aren't escaping the matrix. You are becoming one of its architects. You have moved from the expense column to the asset column of the world's balance sheet. When you move to the receiving side of the ledger, you develop what I call systemic immunity. Most people in the current economy are prey because they are biologically and financially fragile. They are one algorithm update, one corporate restructuring, or one policy change away from having their access to life revoked. They are constantly reacting to the environment like a cell with no membrane. By performing the ownership flip, you build a systemic membrane. When your automated bits and bytes generate enough yield to cover your baseline survival, you are no longer susceptible to the economic viruses that plague everyone else. If inflation rises by 5%, it doesn't matter to you as much because your assets are the ones charging the higher prices. You are on the winning side of the inflation curve. If a major platform changes its rules, you have the liquidity and the weight capital to pivot without panic. This immunity isn't just about money, it's about the calmness of the nervous system. The rich don't just have more money, they have a more resilient biology because they have decoupled their survival from their daily behavior. You stop being a soft target for the harvesting machines and become a sovereign entity that the system cannot easily threaten. This calm is your ultimate competitive advantage because a calm brain will always outthink a panicked one. I want you to look at your bank statement tonight through the lens of the multiplier audit. This is different from the simple leak audit we did before. We aren't looking for things to cut. We are looking for things to weaponize. Find one recurring payment you make to a service provider. Ask yourself, how can I use this tool to create a result that someone else will pay me for? If you pay $20 for a research tool, find a way to turn that research into a specialized paid newsletter for a specific industry. If you pay for an AI design bot, create a specialized template library for a niche market that doesn't know how to use it. Your first systemic dollar is the most important dollar of your life because it proves that the ledger has flipped. It proves that you are no longer just a user, you are an owner. It is the evidence that your foundation of $20,000 is no longer a static pile of cash, but a living, breathing engine of freedom. To build your fortress, you must enter a phase I call strategic obscurity. This is the process of being invisible to the world's status games while your systems are being built. In early 2026, the world wants to turn your every accomplishment into a public performance. The system wants you to broadcast your wins so you can be targeted by more luxury ads. But every minute you spend managing your online persona is bandwidth stolen from your asset construction. The architect stays in the shadows. You drive the older car. You wear the plain clothes. You don't post about your journey. Why? Because you are deleveraging. You are removing the hooks of social validation that the system uses to control your heart rate and your spending. By being uncool in the short term, you are becoming unstoppable in the long term. You are replacing the noise of social status with the signal of systemic yield. You are building in silence so that one day your silence is the most expensive thing you own. The most resilient asset you can build today is the protocol of one. This is your unique way of solving a problem that cannot be easily replicated by a generic AI. It is your human signature on a machine-driven world. As you perform your microflips, you will discover certain patterns, ways of combining tools and skills that yield higher results than the tools alone. This is your proprietary data. You must guard this protocol. You don't just use AI, you build a unique workflow around it that belongs only to you. When you own the protocol, you own the rules of the game. The Matrix can change the platform. The lords can raise the prices of the tools, but they cannot take your protocol. This is your information asset. It is the bridge between your biological brain and your digital machines. By the time you reach the peak of your asset fortress, you should have multiple protocols working for you simultaneously. This is the moment your capital starts to act as a magnet for even more opportunities. The treadmill only wins if you stay exhausted. If you stay distracted by the next thing and the monthly payment, you will spend your entire life building someone else's kingdom. But you have done the work. You have the $20,000. You have the restored bandwidth. You have the blueprints for the flip. The ownership flip is the final act of taking back your life. It is about deciding that your time, your focus, and your legacy are worth more than any temporary status symbol the world can offer. It requires the courage to be obscure for a year, the discipline to master productive friction, and the vision to see yourself as an architect rather than just a user. Write in the comments, What is one tool or skill you are currently paying for that you are going to flip into a profit center this month? Share your plan. Let's start building the fortress together. The majority of people watching this will close the video and go back to their infinite scroll. They will seek another hit of dopamine to forget their financial anxiety. They will keep running until their legs give out. But you are already looking at the blueprints. You are already calculating the yield. You are already stepping off the treadmill and walking toward the control panel. You've done the hard work of saving. Now do the smart work of owning. The system only has power over you if you let it rent you your own life. Stop subscribing, start possessing. Remember, your income is a choice. My name is Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.